Then the details of the flight dispatcher has been asked for. This is a certified professional who works alongside pilots to plan and monitor flights, ensuring they are safe and efficient. They are essentially the ground pilot and are jointly responsible with the pilot for the operational control of a flight. And finally, the details of the crew on board have also been asked for. Meanwhile, the airline itself has taken some steps to help the crew. They have set up a peer group to support them, where their mental health, anxiety levels can be monitored and helped. Former Air Force personnel and pilots are part of this peer group. But let's take a look at how many disruptions Air India itself has faced since this crash. Just today, 3 flights have been cancelled. A Delhi to Paris flight was cancelled after mandatory pre-flight checks identified an issue. Consequently, the return service, Air India flight AI-142, scheduled to fly from Paris to Delhi on Wednesday, has also been cancelled. Ahmedabad London Gatwick airline AI-159, which was supposed to be the first London-bound flight from Ahmedabad for AI after this crash, was cancelled due to unavailability of the Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner. Now, this is because the aircraft coming from London was delayed, but the airline mentioned that amongst the reasons were precautionary checks leading to longer than usual turnaround of aircraft. After this, AI-170, scheduled to operate from London Gatwick to Amritsar, was also declared cancelled. Earlier, Air India's Boeing 777-200 LR flight from San Francisco to Mumbai suffered a technical snag and passengers were forced to deplane in Kolkata, which was a scheduled stop. The Air India flight AI-315 returned to Hong Kong after nearly 90 minutes of takeoff after a technical glitch was detected in the aircraft. The pilot could be heard telling air traffic control, "We do not want to continue further." Air India flight from Mumbai to Ahmedabad was cancelled on Monday after an initial delay due to operational issues that led to the crew reaching their flight duty time limit. The aircraft never departed. On the same day, a Ranchi-bound Air India Express flight returned to Delhi mid-air due to suspected technical glitch, the latest in a string of many disruptions involving Air India just in the past 36 hours or so. But it's not just Air India. Several other airlines are also facing certain similar issues. For example, a British Airways Boeing Dreamliner bound for Chennai was forced to return to London mid-flight on Sunday after experiencing a technical issue. In another instance, a Saudi Airlines flight carrying 250 Hajj pilgrims encountered a technical snag with its landing gear upon arrival in Lucknow on Sunday. Airport officials said smoke and sparks were observed coming from the plane's left wheel shortly after landing, but all flyers are safe. This, of course, is increasing as far as the mid-flight scares are concerned. The debating today on Plane Speak, first and simple, is it just caution that is taking place after such a massive air crash, or are there complications which weren't being pointed out earlier?
ब्लैक बॉक्स मिला है, वो एआईबी के कस्टडी में है, उसकी इंक्वायरी चल रही है। अभी वो सब डेटा डाउनलोड हो जाएगा, उसके बाद पता चलेगा।
Like always follow the rules, never deviated from his rules and all. And his father was an ex-DGCA deputy director, so he comes from that background. I mean, like he's a gem of a person, a very knowledgeable guy.
Let's go across to our guest joining us. Professor Aditya Paranjpe is Associate Professor of Aerospace Engineering in Monash University. Captain Ehsan Khalid is a veteran pilot currently flying as captain of Gulfstream 650 aircraft. Sarosh Damania is an aviation lawyer. I'm also joined by Anirudh Singh Zala, who's one of the passengers on board of the flight from Ahmedabad to London that was cancelled today. He, of course, hasn't been able to take off. Let me begin with Mr. Zala first up. Anirudh ji, आपको एयरलाइन ने क्या अभी तक इन्फॉर्मेशन दी है कि ये फ्लाइट क्यों कैंसिल हुई है और क्या प्रिपरेशन है आपके जैसे पैसेंजर्स के लिए?
यस सर, मैं समय से टाइम पर मैं एयरपोर्ट पहुंच गया। तब तक ये फ्लाइट कैंसिल है ऐसा कोई मेरे को मैसेज के फोन नहीं आया। जब मैं एयरपोर्ट ऊपर पहुंचा तब मेरे को बोला कि आज की फ्लाइट कैंसिल है। तो मैंने बोला कि क्यों फ्लाइट कैंसिल है, तो कोई उसके पास जवाब नहीं था। मगर मैंने उसको पूछा कि नहीं, मेरे को रीजन चाहिए कि क्यों फ्लाइट कैंसिल हुआ। तो बाद में यहाँ कोई एयरपोर्ट अथॉरिटी का कोई जवाबदार था, उसने बोला कि टेक्निकल मिस्टेक से आज वो फ्लाइट यहाँ से नहीं जाएगी। तो हमने बोला कि ये इतना सारा पैसेंजर को क्या करना है, आप ऐसे रही अभी बोलते हो कि फ्लाइट नहीं जाएगी।
तो अभी कोई ऑल्टरनेट
बोला कि तो आपको
कोई ऑल्टरनेट अरेंजमेंट आपको करके दिया है एयरलाइन ने?
नहीं, उसमें ऐसा है कि वो बोलता था कि कल 11:40 बजे की फ्लाइट है, उसमें आपका टिकट ट्रांसफर कर दे।
अच्छा, तो मैं आपसे पूछना चाहती हूँ, ये जो अहमदाबाद से लंदन जो फ्लाइट जा रही थी, इसकी टिकट आपने कब बुक करी थी सर? ये जो अभी क्रैश हुआ है अहमदाबाद में, उससे पहले से प्लान था आपका या उसके बाद आपने टिकट बुक करी है?
उससे पहले 10 दिन पहले मैंने बुक किया था। पहले मैं ये 12 तारीख को ये फ्लाइट थी, उसमें मैं जाने वाला था।
अच्छा, आपकी
उसमें मैंने लीगल कॉन्फ्रेंस यस,
आपकी 12 जून वाली फ्लाइट में पहले प्लान था?
मैं 12 तारीख को जाने वाला था पहले।
अच्छा,
यस सर।
अच्छा, तो ये तो चलो अच्छा हुआ कि आपकी
जाने वाला था, तो मेरी लीगल कॉन्फ्रेंस कैंसिल हुई।
चलिए, ये तो अच्छा हुआ कि आपका
तो
जाना लेट हो गया। हाँ,
यस सर, यस सर। तो मैंने ये 17 तारीख को टिकट लिया, तो जब मैं एयरपोर्ट ऊपर गया तो वो भी फ्लाइट कैंसिल हो गई।
चलिए अब देखते हैं अब क्या होता है कल। लेकिन मैं आपसे पूछना चाहती हूँ अनिरुद्ध जी, आपको क्या डर लग रहा है? ये जो फ्लाइट है, ये रूट भी वही है, फ्लाइट भी मतलब एयरलाइन भी वही है, अभी आज कैंसिल हो गई फ्लाइट। आपको एज अ पैसेंजर कुछ डर लगता है अभी फ्लाइट में जाने से?
उसमें सिस्टर ऐसा है कि जाना जरूरी है और डर भी बहुत लगता है। क्या करें हम? तो जाए तो किस में जाए? पैदल जाए, साइकिल लेके जाए?
सही बात है, सही बात है। दैट इज द प्रॉब्लम दैट पैसेंजर्स आर फेसिंग। दे हैव टू डू व्हाट दे हैव टू डू। बट आप क्या उम्मीद रखते हैं कि जैसे सरकार की प्रोब चल रही है इस फ्लाइट के बाद, बहुत सारे एयरलाइन ने भी कुछ स्टेप्स लिए हैं, डीजीसीए जो है बाकी प्रोब हो रही है, आप क्या उम्मीद रखते हैं?
हम तो उम्मीद रखते हैं कि ये एयर इंडिया के जो कोई जिम्मेदार है उसको ये उसकी फ्लाइट सभी अच्छी तरह से मेंटेन करना पड़ेगा और अच्छा स्टाफ भी, टेक्निकल स्टाफ भी अच्छा रखना पड़ेगा। और पैसेंजर को जो ही कीमत बोलता है वही कीमत में वो टिकट लेते हैं। तो वो कोई जरूरी काम से जाते हैं तो उसको पूरी सुविधाएं देनी पड़ती है। जो ये नहीं करेगा तो हम एडवोकेट है, बार काउंसिल ऑफ गुजरात के मेंबर है। अभी मेरे को ऐसा लगता है कि उसके कुछ नामदार कोर्ट के द्वार के ऊपर मेरे को जाना पड़ेगा। ऐसे तो नहीं चलेगा, ये पब्लिक कहाँ तक परेशान होगी।
आप खुद लॉयर हैं, बार काउंसिल में अहमदाबाद के?
हाँ, मैं लॉयर हूँ, सीनियर एडवोकेट हूँ, बार काउंसिल ऑफ गुजरात के एक्स चेयरमैन और अभी मैं मेंबर हूँ।
अच्छा, तो एज अ पैसेंजर अगर आपको लगता है कि और तकलीफ हो रही है तो आप कुछ ऐसा बता रहे हैं कि कुछ केस फाइल करना चाह रहे हैं?
हाँ, यो मैंने सभी पैसेंजर को बोला है
हाँ,
कि मैं एडवोकेट हूँ, आप सभी जो मेरे पास आएगा तो हम उसके कोर्ट में जाएंगे।
अगर कल फ्लाइट उनका आपका जो रिप्लेसमेंट फ्लाइट है नहीं होता है तो उसके बाद कुछ स्टेप लेंगे आप?
यस सर, प्रो बोनो करना पड़ेगा।
जी जी जी। Okay, Anirudh Singh Zalaji, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद हमसे बात करने के लिए. One of the passengers who could not fly out to London today on the Air India flight that was scheduled from Ahmedabad, the exact same route, the aircraft couldn't be available due to other issues that the flight is facing, and currently they're facing a lot of issues. Let me just open this up to the other guests who are joining us. Sarosh Damania is also an aviation lawyer. You heard what our passenger was saying. He's also an advocate himself. There seems to be a growing sense amongst the public that something needs to be done. If they need to take matters into their own hands, then so be it. Do you think this is because of fear?
See, of course, fear is one of the concerns which is there. Now, today we are seeing so many incidents happening on flight. This maybe not be a mere coincidence. Maybe earlier the safety checks which were being ignored, or the crew which was not that very alert for small things also, is now being very proactively monitoring the safety of the aircraft, following the safety protocols to the proper means which were supposed to be done. So there is a question about was safety protocols being followed? Because as we see, just after this crash, the amount of cancellations or amount of safety checks which have gone up, and that has comparably resulted in cancellation of flights. So
Yes.
there is a lapse of safety. So there is no question about it. There were some corners being cut. There were some things which were being ignored. But because of this enhanced safety checks, they are coming to light, and because of that, flights are being cancelled.
You
Of
know,
course,
we're
as
just
far
getting
as-
news. We're just getting news that a Bengaluru flight to London, another London-bound flight has been cancelled, this time from Bengaluru. Air India involved once again. I'm awaiting the details of what the airline says about the reasons for that cancellation. But Captain Asad Khalid, I want to understand from you, this couldn't just be coincidental, right? As Sarosh Damania is pointing out. I have heard from experts in the aviation sector in India, particularly since this crash, say that there is an atmosphere of fear for pilots to formally raise certain complaints as far as checks for aircrafts are concerned, because that would lead to grounding, or that would lead to delays, that would lead to losses. And there is an internal pressure on pilots not to do so. Would you attest to that?
No, I don't think that is true. Uh, it might be one odd incident here and there, but that's not the rule of the game. Rule of the game is that the engineers do a particular check. They have a sequence of checklists to be followed, and pilots do a sequence of checklists to be followed. If they find a problem that is not commensurate to the flight safety, they would bring it down. And since it is a very big organization, it is not verbally done. It is written into the tech log, and it is available.
But despite writing it,
Right.
let's say some sort of a minor technical issue, does the flight take
Right.
off?
Okay, the thing is that the issues can vary. Just now we said minor. We have three clocks, timepieces in the aircraft. If one of them is unserviceable, should the aircraft take off or not take off? It's a very minor one. Then there is a handrest which is not going up freely. It's also a snag. Okay, so the line between minor snag, when it becomes a major snag, is really very difficult to say. Rightly said that it will be a mixture of everything. Such a big accident has happened. The entire country and the world is looking at everything that we do. Even if you are going to be driving, you would be extra careful in driving. Forget about flying. Okay, that's the kind of psyche once you go through such a kind of a horrific accident in front of your eyes. So pilots, engineers, controllers, and everyone would be extra careful. The detailed enhanced inspection that has been ordered by DGCA is a preventive step till such time we know what went wrong. So during this particular time, when there is an inspection, and if they find that there is something which is not really within the tolerance limit, and they put the aircraft down for that particular thing, it's like, you go to the garage and the fan belt is not really in best shape. It can continue for some time, but then now that it is a very hot temperature, you say, I'll change it. Okay.
No, so I want to understand from you, Captain, surely the line between what is a minor issue versus what is an
Yes.
issue for which the plane should not at all be taking off, I'm guessing
Right.
that line would be pretty thick.
No, it is laid down in black and white, and that somebody says that we were being pressurized to take off when the takeoff was not safe. No airline does it. No aviation person does it. I haven't faced anyone who would say that fine, your batteries are not okay and you take off. We have to go. No.
So what explains
Every,
this? I just want to understand from you. What explains the fact that suddenly after the Ahmedabad
mix.
plane crash, there are like 10 flights that have faced issues?
It is a mixture of everything. What we were accepting even on that particular thick line on the other side could also not be acceptable as of now, because it
Okay.
would look very foolish, like FDTL, flight duty time limitation.
Yes.
Okay. Now all these checks are taking more time. So people would be waiting, flights would get cancelled because one aircraft is not coming in, the other is not going out, the crew has reported to the airport, and their duty time starts not at the airport, but the time they leave their house.
No, I understand that. Duty time aside, only
right.
one such flight case has come to light where it was a duty time related issue, but others there have been technical issues. We don't know exactly what. The airline hasn't elaborated.
So the engineer who is supposed to sign a particular check, which has been mandated to be an enhanced check, okay, he is also not doing it as a regular thing, because that enhanced check wasn't supposed to be so at such regularity, right? So if they find something which is even in the tolerance limit or the boundary, okay, they would put it down, because that's the most prudent thing to do.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, once again, I'll come back to you. Professor Aditya Paranjpe is also with us. Do you also feel that this is just heightened concern right now? Otherwise, what will explain all of these snags that are coming to light, and particularly with the Dreamliner, particularly with Air India?
Okay, so I think we need to be a little cautious about this. First off, I completely agree with Captain Khalid on this, because at this point there is a little bit of paranoia. There's enhanced anxiety in the minds of the flying public. So we are responding to, as a society, to every single event that occurs here, and it's just compounding our collective anxiety. Events such as these, I mean, they're undesirable, they are rare, but these do happen. And what I must add here is that airplanes are designed with a very high degree of redundancy. So if something goes wrong, it's not necessarily going to lead to anything fatal. It may not even lead to anything that's going to cause a loss of the airframe. So with all of these redundancies built in, the safety of aviation as a whole is still as high as it gets for any mode of transport. Now,
but what about safety in India? Sorry to interrupt you there, but what about safety standards in India? Indian experts, some of them, not all of them, some of them have pointed to the fact that we are not up to the mark.
I honestly don't know. I'm not an expert in safety. But look, I personally travel Air India very often. I travel Air India when I get a chance. That's my personal side of it. But more on the professional side, even if you look at just accident statistics, we are not out of out of the ordinary. If you look at Air India, before this 787 crash, the last major loss of an airframe, if I'm not mistaken, was almost 30 years ago. I think it happened, and Captain Khalid can probably clarify, being a pilot himself, was when a pilot got disoriented after taking off from Bombay. What was Bombay back in the days? So this was obviously late 80s or early 90s, and since then there has not been a single hull loss with Air India. And let's not also forget the fact that Air India during this time underwent financially turbulent times, and you would have expected, with the kind of financial crunch that they faced around the time of their merger with Indian Airlines and what followed, things would have gone for a toss, and they did not, and that is really to Air India's credit. I don't want to advertise here for Air India, but at the same time I have to serve as a bit of a devil's advocate and tell people that, look, we understand the anxiety. As humans, we do respond emotionally. But it's also our job as professionals in engineering and in aviation to take the objective side and tell people that, look, here are the numbers. Let's not ignore these.
No, of course. This is not about air travel per se. This is also not about the airline per se. But I think the anxiety levels and paranoia you're talking about wouldn't have happened if we didn't have so many cases of technical snags coming to light from the airline or the particular aircraft involved. Captain Khalid, you were shaking your head when I talked about Indian safety standards. You want to respond to that?
I would definitely say that that is not true. Okay. We as pilots and our engineers, our controllers, they get world training standards. But India is the only country in the world which is growing at such a fast rate because of such nice infrastructures being developed in other fields, that the market demand is overstripping the supply. And as a result, we are growing at not a slow rate. So this particular growth puts in extra amount of pressure on the qualified manpower like the pilots or technicians or controllers, because we have the ability today to purchase maybe 100 aircraft in next 2 years. But do we have the ability to make 5,000 pilots come in these 2 years? If
No,
pilots
so
can,
you
do we
raise
have
an
the
important
ability?
point. I want to bring in Sarosh Damania in this. This brings us to the side where some corners are cut, right? This is exactly the situation that we're talking about. The burgeoning growth of the aviation sector is not being matched by what would be, adequate supplies or adequate checks and balances.
Well, see, there is another major problem is that there is a major shortage of parts internationally. So aircraft parts, because of the production supply lines, because of the world conflicts which are going on, there was a lot of supply shortage for Boeing aircrafts, Airbus aircraft, lot of delays in delivery of the aircraft because the parts are not being made. So airlines are maybe trying to extend the parts life also, because they are not, they if they even want to replace the part, there is no part available in the market.
No, but that can't be an
Another,
excuse, Mr. Damania. That
of
can't
course, that
really
is
be
not an
something that you
excuse.
can
Well,
play
that
with
is
the
what I'm
people's
saying. So
lives with.
that is affecting safety.
This is where I believe there is some criticism that the DGCA is not implementing the directives very carefully.
Well, of course, they have to. With this enhanced checks which have come in now, and with the enhanced checks, we can see that there are issues in the aircraft. So it was like that there were no issues. You can't say that there were no issues. There was no enhanced check. That is why we did not know about the issues. But with the enhanced checks and with the number of aircrafts having issues, these are multiple issues in multiple aircraft. It is not in one type of aircraft. These are different type of aircraft which are facing issues. So there is a problem with the maintenance. There is a problem with the standards of safety in the aircraft, and which were being ignored till now. Of course, air crash is very unfortunate, but because of the aftermath of this, now the safety airlines are trying to focus on safety. The government is trying to focus on safety now.
You
So
know, what
there
I've also
is a lack
heard,
of
even
safety.
from former DGCA officials, is that they're very understaffed. This exactly is the juxtaposition of the aviation sector burgeoning and, blossoming, but we don't have enough DGCA officials to even keep track of this.
Correctly, there are under government. Forget DGCA department is of course to monitor things. They are understaffed. Then also airlines also there are one chief engineer and there are many junior engineers who are working under them. So there is shortage of experienced, trained, highly qualified manpower. Of course, there is. I'm not saying that there is no qualified manpower, but the amount of aircrafts and the amount of flights which are going, and the aircrafts which fly, because airlines are commercial companies, they need to optimize flying hours. So
Exactly.
the
So
aircrafts are continuously flying in the air. They want
which is
maximum
why, because
to
this
fly.
is a private business and whatever said and done, nothing against any one particular airline or company, but because this is an enterprise, there are bound to be certain corners cut unless there is extreme vigilance. Professor Paranjpe, I want to understand from you, what do you hope comes out of not just this probe, but the aftermath of this crash? Because we are getting a sense that the Home Ministry, the DGCA, the Civil Aviation Ministry is now looking at this issue as some sort of an overhaul that can be brought in.
Right. So I think one of three things is going to happen. Either you're going to find out from this probe that this was really a culmination of random events, in which case probably nothing may change. The second possibility is obviously an overhaul of how maintenance and maintenance, repair, and what we call MRO happens. Maintenance, repair, and overall operations occur. That's the second possibility. The one that that would be probably most worried about, I hope it doesn't come to fruition, is if this particular probe leads to the discovery of design flaws.
Yes.
At this point, we have no idea what's gone wrong, but it's design
Yes.
flaws that I would be genuinely worried about. Now, having said that, I also want to point out, because there's been a lot of discussion about this on the social media channels, and obviously people are getting affected. There is no evidence at this point in time to indicate anything in the direction of design flaws, anything in the direction of MRO problems. In fact, if our record in the
No,
past
no.
20, 30 years is anything to go by,
I would like to contradict or maybe add to it once Professor.
Sure. I'll give you time, sir. Yes, Professor, continue. Finish, please.
okay, all right, yeah. So at this point, the evidence suggesting any of these MRO issues or design flaws is simply not there. It might be in the FDRs or in the CVR. We don't know that because we haven't yet seen that evidence. But purely from the available evidence, there's nothing to suggest any of these.
Okay.
Now, having said that, yeah. So look, I mean, since you asked me what I would be most worried about, it would probably be design flaws being discovered, if at all there are any. And in terms of overhaul, look, aviation as a whole has been procedure driven at any given point in time. Aviation systems are complex. Procedures do evolve continuously. This is not the first time. Even if something changes with the procedures, this is not the first time, and this is most likely not the last time either.
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
We should not overhype this. Is my point.
Yes, Captain, I only have a minute left, sir. You wanted to come in, particularly on the Boeing issue. I think there's a lot of curiosity amongst people.
Right. So I would just like to bring out one thing, that right now the 95% of the scanner is on the design flaw of Boeing 787 electrical system, which may have caused a dual engine failure. Okay. And that is the biggest concern, and that gives a lot of anxiety to everyone. If that be the problem with 787, is it also a problem with other aircraft? Because it is almost impossible to get a digital precision of both engine failing simultaneously, and it can only be triggered by a digital signal which comes from electrical computer software system. Okay. Otherwise, even if I was to give you, close your eyes and switch off both the engines, you will have 1-2 seconds of gap for the engine to wind down, even if you initiated it at the same time. But here it was at the same time. So definitely the biggest question mark, though it is a very, very right time to overhaul our system, our training system, our safety record system, and everything is good. But the fact remains that all these will actually help nothing if there was a design flaw which shuts the engine of the aircraft.
No, absolutely. And this is why we have been discussing the explanations that should come forward from Boeing itself. They're part of this investigation, or they've sent their team. And certainly, given that there has been investigations against them in the past, that there has been a whistleblower for the Dreamliner itself, there are certain questions that absolutely need to be cleared out in the minds of the public. Otherwise, this is going to be lingering on. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed in Canada for the G7 summit. The visit has global attention as it marks Prime Minister's first visit to Canada since the diplomatic ties between the two countries deteriorated last year. But also because this will be his first such global engagement since Operation Sindoor. During the 23-hour tour, the Prime Minister will hold bilateral meetings with global leaders and attend the outreach sessions. Canadian Prime Minister Carney's invitation to Prime Minister Modi to attend this summit signaled the new government's intent to repair ties with New Delhi that plummeted to all-time low over the killing of pro-Khalistani separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada. This summit, though, is also being held under the shadow of a new war that has erupted in the Middle East and that is likely to dominate discussions. But let's focus on what could be on the Prime Minister's agenda. One, of course, is to amplify the issue of cross-border terror that India faces from Pakistan and push for sanctions and FATF scrutiny against the country. To strengthen the global South representation while seeking reforms in institutions like the G7 itself to reflect modern geopolitical realities. Build on the G20 precedents, India will seek to address developing nations' concerns, especially on fossil fuels, climate change, emissions, human rights, etc. India looks to position itself as a counter to China's influence in the Indo-Pacific region with focus on regional stability and enhancing partnerships with G7 countries. India also looking to project itself as a stable investment destination amidst global economic shifts. So that's the big focus for us. What to expect from the Prime Minister's visit? We are being joined by my colleague from Canada. From Kananaskis, Sanjay Suri, my colleague, is joining us. Sanjay Suri, there's been a lot of shadow of exactly what is happening at the G7, even before we get down to what the Prime Minister could hope to achieve. This whole Israel-Iran conflict has already kind of created headlines there.
Well, it certainly has, and for a start, as of today, the G7 is the G6 with Trump's abrupt departure yesterday, and that did relate to the Iran-Israel war that is underway. There was a statement that the G7 put out saying that it supports a ceasefire, and after some hesitation, Trump endorsed and supported that statement. Later, when he left, Macron also amplified the fact that Trump had supported that statement. Trump then went on board his aircraft and denied this. And in fact, ridiculed Macron. He said it's not a ceasefire that he wants an end to the war. So that became the quibbling point. But really, the G7 has never quite held together very closely, and we have another instance now demonstrating that the G7 is not much of a group, and as of today, it's not quite 7 either.
Let's focus on India. Prime Minister's first visit to Canada after the souring of relationships, his first visit overseas since Operation Sindoor. What's the mood like as far as the Indian delegation is concerned, and what are you hearing about what could possibly come out for India-Canada, first of all?
Well, between India and Canada, the critical moment is going to be the bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Carney. This really, quite other than what is happening at the summit itself, is of vital importance to India. That meeting, of course, has a broad and long-term agenda, and that is to improve economic relations between the two countries at a time when Canada is having a hard time trading with the US. 75% of Canadian exports go to the US. The kind of tariffs that have been applied will make that kind of export and business and trade unsustainable. It already has. So Canada is looking for new markets. When you look around, India presents itself as the prime opportunity, and Carney has said so in so many words that India is very important in the global supply chain and that Canada looks to build economic relations with India. All this will need to be facilitated by first clearing the legal hurdle that has stood between the two countries. The Canadian government under Trudeau made a number of allegations against India over involvement in the murder of Niger 2 years ago, almost to the day. The Indian government has denied those allegations, and it has to be said that the Canadian government has not offered any evidence yet to back those allegations. That is a prime issue that will come up, that will need to be tackled head on, and the two leaders, the two countries will have to get past that to then ease the way for greater trade flow.
Yeah. Very quickly, Sanjay, we've got a new war in the Middle East. We've had Russia-Ukraine continue. We've already had Israel versus Hamas. In all of this, actually, the conflict that India and Pakistan had, and the fact that India did not press the issue, agreed to a ceasefire when Pakistan asked us for. Actually, India comes out looking very good. Do you think that this whole war situation could kind of sidetrack the G7 from what it would be their other issues that they want to deal with?
Well, that has happened already. It is dominating G7. The fundamental issues that Canada, the host country, had raised was economic policies, looking at the economic outlook and facilitation of growth through policy that would facilitate and enable it. Now, all that has been sidetracked in a sense because the Gulf War, the war between Israel and Iran, has come to dominate not just the political or the human rights agenda, but also the economic agenda. Iran, let's not forget, is the third largest oil producer in OPEC. It produces 3 million barrels a day. That's a significant amount of production. If just that were to stop, that would upset the oil prices. Already they've been rising considerably. Beyond that, there's a knock-on factor whether the Strait of Hormuz becomes unsafe for passage, and that takes 20% of the world's oil through that strait. If that gets compromised, then you're going to have very severe knock-on effects right around the world. So that is an economic crisis that
Yes.
has been brought on by this war. That is not the kind of economic factor the G7 had set out to consider, but here we are.
Yeah. Well, it seems like the global community wants to take 2 steps forward, but a lot of these wars, economic situations, conflicts are pegging it back by at least a step. Sanjay Suri, thanks a lot for joining us. We'll keep coming back to you as the official briefings and delegations begin. But speaking about what has happened at the G7, US President Donald Trump is back in the US after leaving the G7 early, having directed his team to attempt a meeting with Iranian officials as quickly as possible. Now, Trump denied he left to work on a ceasefire and said something, quote, much bigger is in the works. Yesterday, Trump warned Iranians to evacuate Tehran, underscoring the danger to its 10 million residents. The US role has been very curious so far as this conflict is concerned. The US did not provide any military assistance or have any involvement in Israel's Friday strike, but Donald Trump told media on Sunday that it's possible they could get involved. Now, Israel and Iran are trading strikes on a 5th day of conflict with civilians in flashpoint, facing waves of attacks. In Iran, at least 224 people have been killed. Since the hostilities began in Israel, 24 people have been killed. Now, in a post to Truth Social in the early hours of Tuesday, Trump ridiculed French President Macron, said he was publicity seeking and wrong. He has no idea why I'm now on my way to Washington, Trump said, but it certainly has nothing to do with a ceasefire. He wrote much bigger than that. Whether purposely or not, Emmanuel always gets it wrong. Stay tuned. Listen.
We're not looking for a ceasefire. I didn't say I was looking for a ceasefire. That was Emmanuel, nice guy, but he doesn't get it right too often. But we're not looking. We're looking for better than a ceasefire. An end, a real end, not a ceasefire. An end.
Now, yesterday there were reports that US President Donald Trump rejected an Israeli plan to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, concerned that it would escalate the conflict. But Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, when asked about this, told an American network that killing Khamenei will not escalate the conflict, it's going to end the conflict. Asked if Israel would target the supreme leader, Netanyahu said Israel was doing what it needs to do. Now, he went on, accused Iran of pushing the region towards a forever war. He accused Iran of terrorizing everyone in the Middle East. He accused Iran of bombing the Aramco oil fields in Saudi Arabia and even accused them of spreading terror. While accusing Iran of pushing the region into forever war, Netanyahu said it's Iran's regime that is bringing us to the brink of a nuclear war. Defending Israel's actions, he said their aim is to bring an end to Iran's aggression and hinted that they will go all out and stand up against forces of evil.
So are you going to target the supreme leader?
Look, we're doing what we need to do. I'm not going to get into the details.
But U.S. officials tell us that the president flatly rejected a plan, an opportunity that the Israelis had to take out the supreme leader. Do you understand his concern? My understanding is his concern is that this would escalate the conflict beyond where it is already.
It's not going to escalate the conflict. It's going to end the conflict.
With Trump leaving the G7 early, all the signs that are coming in as far as statements, is an Iran regime change in store? Are the Israelis and the US working together on this? Now, Iran's state broadcaster in Tehran was, by the way, hit last evening, even as the broadcast was going on. Let's take a look at that and then we'll also go to our guests.
یا در اختیار قرار دادن وسیله نقلیه همچنین موضوعات مختلف. خیلی متشکر از اینکه با ما همراه هستید. آنچه که ملاحظه می‌کنید تجاوز رژیم صهیونیستی، فضای غبارآلوده، استادیوم
Let's go across to our guest joining us. Major Dan Pfefferman is former IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Force, and foreign policy expert. I'm also joined by Prabhu Dayal, former Indian diplomat and Consul General of India to New York. Major Pfefferman, with the statements that are coming in on Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei, the big question is Israel really planning towards this direction?
I'm sure Israel is planning this direction as part of its escalation strategy against Iran. The Iranian regime has been waging open warfare on Israel, certainly for the last 30 years, but really for the last 600 days. It's employed every one of its proxy armies against Israel in direct conflict. It fired twice a volley of 200 ballistic missiles and then 100 ballistic missiles directly at Israel, including at Tel Aviv and at Jerusalem. And so there, as far as Israel is concerned, Iran has long ago waged open warfare on Israel. This is a threat for the Iranian regime to back down. But at this point, it looks like the Israeli government has set on its sights to completely neutralize all of Iran's nuclear capabilities. I think it's going past that now to its governance capabilities, its military capabilities. And if we don't see some kind of resolution that completely takes Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile capabilities off the table, then it's not out of question that they go after the supreme leader himself. The rest of the IRGC leadership has been taken out already.
Is it that so far the US was holding Israel's hand in this regard?
I think this is a strategy that has worked very well for the United States. While President Trump and the current atmosphere in the United States has been one of America first, meaning America is very careful in which international conflicts it gets directly involved in. It saw an opportunity, and I think Israel was happy to play this part, to use Israel as an attack dog. And so you saw the Trump administration and Trump himself telling the Iranians time and again to fall into line, to come back to the table, to dismantle the nuclear program. And Israel was played the part of the attack dog. It's getting certainly political support from the United States, which I think is most critical. It's getting armaments from the United States. It's getting military funding from the United States.
But we got reports yesterday that the US did not approve the plan to take out Khamenei.
I don't know what has been approved or not. Until a week ago, the United States pretended that it wasn't involved in this at all, and we were all surprised by the timing of this attack. I would be very hard-pressed to learn in retrospect, maybe 5, 10, 20 years from now, that this attack was not completely coordinated with the Americans, every aspect of it, the timing of it. We know the deception campaign that was helped with the American communication with Iran, with the timing of the nuclear negotiations. So I would be very hard pressed to think
we don't really know exactly what
happened.
Certainly the US role and everything that it has been saying while engaging in these nuclear talks with Iran has been quite strange so far. But I am joined by our guest from Iran, professor at Al Mustafa International University, Zamir Abbas Jafri is joining us. There are now greatly sensational statements that are coming in from the Israeli side about taking out the Iranian supreme leader. What kind of alarm has it caused in Iran?
Thank you very much, and greetings to all our viewers. First of all, Israel can only speak about killing. That's what they are and what their identity is. Basically, they have killed more than 30,000 children. International Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International has already called them as genocide, what is happening right now. International Criminal Court has already issued an arrest warrant against Netanyahu. So basically, they only understand the language of killing others, and that's what they understand. With Iran, they created a naked aggressive act of aggression against the Iranian government, which is a sovereign country. And it was completely illegal what they did on Friday morning. They killed all the commanders, and they also killed the nuclear scientist, which was sleeping at their home with their families, and their families and children were killed as well. Just in one attack on one of the buildings in Tehran, which was called Chamran Tower, 15 children were killed in only one attack. There's a taekwondo star who represented in international competitions. He was killed. So Israel only understands one language, and that is the language of killing others and asking others, if you don't obey to us or don't submit to be us or don't be subservient to us, then we'll kill you. That is the language. And that's not the language that anybody wants to hear, especially Iran. You need to understand Iran from Iranian perspective. Iranians are a very old civilization, more than 2,500-year-old civilization. Apart from that, the ideology that Iran has is ideology of Imam Hussein and ideology of Karbala, which teaches never to submit to a tyrant. So you can lose your head, but you can never bow down to a tyrant. That is the kind of ideology that Iran has. Yesterday they attacked. The IRIB, which is the national satellite TV, and you saw a brave lady, a brave girl standing there, where you saw that bombs were blasting around her until the last moment, till the time her producer did not force her that the bomb has already reached our building. She was not ready to leave, and she said that you want the voice of truth to be stopped, and this will never stop. And she came 5 minutes later, and she continued the program, and she said, "We are ready to die, but the message of truth will never die." This is the ideology of Iran. This woman represents Iran, and it represents the bravery, the courage, and the deep ideology of not submitting to the tyrant.
Yeah.
Just I want to add last line.
But
that
Mr.
this
Jaffrey,
war
I
is
want to
not
understand
about
from you.
Israel
I want
and
to understand
Iran.
from you. Now it seems like instead of any de-escalation, there is bound to be some escalation. There are now, discussions of a possible regime change. I want to understand from you very quickly before I move to Prabhu Dayal. Is that the fear that is being apprehended in Iran as well, that Israel plus US and all of these Western NATO forces could come together to execute a regime change?
I think this is very childish. Anybody who understands Iran understands what the reality is. Friday morning, Iran was hit. And while it was hit after Friday prayers, millions and millions of people in all the cities of Iran came to the street after Friday prayers. The videos are available online. Millions. I was there in one of the rallies in Qom. There were more than 1 million people in Qom stating their support to the government. So this is complete propaganda that there is going to be a regime change in Iran. It's absolute nonsense.
No, so there are two issues here. One is, of course, public support to Iran, and there are both views can be acceptable that under the face of the attack by Israel, Iranians are joining together, leaving their political differences aside, and obviously in this case, it can be a moment of nationalistic pride and people come together. The other issue that people point out is that actually many Iranians are not happy with the regime. They do want to go back to the pre-revolution situation in Iran. I don't really have enough time to discuss such a delicate and complicated issue. But Prabhu Dayal, I do want to come to you to understand the US's role. Given everything that Donald Trump has said, something bigger is coming up, not just a ceasefire. He has talked about that Iran has to give up. Iran has to be defeated completely. It doesn't seem like they're in the mood to make up on the table. What do you read into the US's statements, and will the US get involved, one, directly? Secondly, will they give a go-ahead to what is being talked about, an execution of Khamenei?
Shivani, while introducing me, you had said that I had served as Consul General in New York. I would like to mention that I had also earlier served as Deputy to the Ambassador in Iran. So before answering your question, I want to state two quick things. Firstly, when I was posted in Iran, I used to interact with the Iranians from all sections of society, and believe me, most of them wanted that their country should not be ruled by this regime. They wanted a regime change. Secondly, I found that there was unremitting hostility to Israel in Iran, particularly in the regime. Now, chants like death to Israel were heard very frequently. And Israel, if it thinks that Iranian possession of nuclear weapons would make it an existentialist threat, then it is not without reason. Now I come to your question about the possibility of American involvement.
Yes.
You know, White House and Pentagon officials have said that the US will not get involved. But you never know what the US is going to do. It says one thing, but it ends up doing something quite different. So, there is a possibility that the US may get directly involved in attacking Iran. And there are some statements by President Trump, which you have pointed out, which are very significant. And the most significant statement is that he has asked people to vacate Tehran.
Yes.
So there is some likelihood of an impending US attack on Tehran. Of course, he has said that he's going back to the United States from the G7 summit because there's something very important to do. There's big business for obvious reasons, etc. Now, let me tell you that the nuclear sites within Iran are inside bunkers, deep bunkers. Israel doesn't have the capacity to be able to destroy those. But the United States has. The United States has got much bigger missiles, and it has got the bombers on which those big missiles can be carried. So
But do you
if the
think they've made
United
up their
States,
mind? Do you think US, which was sounding uncertain, has now made up its mind that it has to denuclearize Iran and possibly even bring about a change?
I don't rule it out.
You don't rule it out.
Because there are signs that the United States is getting directly involved. It is sending signals that if Iran signs the nuclear deal, then the attack will not happen. But as things stand, if you ask me, there is every likelihood that the United States could join on the Iranian side in attacking Iran. I don't rule it out, and I'm afraid that there might be an escalation.
Yes, that would lead to escalation. Major Pfefferman, I have a limited time, so I'll give you the last crack first before I go across to Mr. Jaffrey. Are you not worried that this is possibly an escalation of the kind that could go out of hand if there was a sort of a final solution attempted by Israel and US together?
First of all, I'd like to ask the professor for the Bollywood scriptwriters who write the alternative history that he presented here. Iran, through its proxies, has been attacking Israel nonstop, not just since October 7th, but with a massive escalation on October 7th. And every single death of an innocent Palestinian in Gaza is on the hands of Hamas and its backers in Tehran, who are now finally meeting their own fate. They hide behind proxies and they attack Israel. They've also attacked the Saudis, they've attacked the Emiratis, but they do it conveniently through proxies. And Israel, as it neared a nuclear weapon, Israel said enough is enough. Israel cannot sit by while a regime that threatens its destruction develops the ultimate weapon for that destruction. At this point, I don't know what will be the end of it. I don't think Israel has the ability or the aspirations to implement a regime change in Iran. I think the Iranian people, and I think those numbers are laughable, about 1 million people supporting this regime. The Iranian people have been the ones to suffer the longest under this brutal regime, where women who dare show strands of hair are executed in secret prisons in Evin and other places. This is a people that has been friends of Israel, friends of the Jewish people. The Jewish people and the Iranian people have been friends since the ancient times of Persia. We were allies until 1979. I wish we will be friends and allies again.
Okay.
Israel has no problems with Islam, has no problems with the people of Iran, and we would have no problems with the regime if the regime left us alone as well.
Okay, I have only a minute left, sir. Mr. Jaffrey, my question finally to you is, do you think that there does need to be a change in the mindset of the governance in Iran, where its open stance of destruction of Israel is bound to attract action, not just from Israel, but other governments and bodies as well?
Okay, basically the propaganda script which my brother was explaining, let me just add few things. Look, let me just close this with the statement of Mahatma Gandhi, which Mahatma Gandhi clearly said that Palestine belongs to the Palestinians the same way England belongs to the English and France belongs to the French. The stand of Iran is the same stand that Mahatma Gandhi had. We are looking, this war is not a war between Iran and Israel. This war is between two ideologies. One ideology of colonialist and imperialist mindset, which wants others to submit to them. And there is another ideology of resistance who wants to stand up and face these kind of bullies which are there in the world. For a long time, for 20, 30 years, it was possible that Israel and America used to hit everybody and go away. Now there is the time where when they hit, they're getting hit back.
Okay.
And what we saw in Haifa, Jerusalem, and different places is a sign that the world is changing. And those colonialists who sit there and just want to dictate to the world and let the world be their servant and subservient, that world is over. Now we live in a new world.
Well,
Just
I've
one
run out
minute,
of time. I'm afraid the issues involved here are too sensitive and too complex. I'm afraid I do not have enough time for all of that. But I do thank our guests for joining us. Remember, Israeli Defense Minister has just said a short while ago that Khamenei could end up like Saddam Hussein. That has really raised temperatures as far as this conflict is concerned. But even as I end plain speak, here's an announcement of the launch of Money Control Super Pro. Get live trades by SEBI registered RAs, ready-made chart patterns as they form, and AI-generated stock alerts. Get your investment superpower. Today, subscribe now.
Brought to you by This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Let's now talk about India as it has begun relocating students from Tehran's medical universities to safer zones amid the escalating Iran-Israel conflict. The Indian embassy, in close coordination with Iranian authorities, is facilitating this on-ground movement now. Many have been advised to leave the capital using private transport. Separately, some Indian nationals have exited via Armenia. The MEA has said that the situation remains fluid and further advisories may follow. Over 1,500 students are to be evacuated, and the first batch is already en route via the Armenia corridor.
How has the experience been? Because it's very traumatizing to see that your children are there and then there are a lot of difficult times for you. How has it been like for a couple of days? How was it for you personally as a parent, as a father of two kids?
I never experienced such a... It was really trauma for me as well as for my children, but my children were they're very brave. Yeah. They really don't want to put us under any stress. It's not them only, all the children over there. But from the third night, when the strikes grew more, intensity of the strikes was more, that was really, my daughter told, tonight it will be difficult for us. And I was talking to her on video, and she told me that something has struck, and I had heard a big explosion, and she started running downstairs. Running downstairs means to the ground floor, not any bunker, not any shelter, nothing. They were just standing in some corner or something like that. That was really painful.
There's a bit of helplessness on your
helplessness. That was very painful. That really was very painful.
So because now the government has started a process of at least moving them to a safer place, are you satisfied with the response that the government has given?
Definitely, we are satisfied. We all, not me only, all the parents, majority of the parents have said, really, now they are relieved, little bit, partially relieved, and they have been lodged in some hotels. They have been given buffet, breakfast and dinner. They will be served with dinner and lunch too.
And we're getting more updates on Indian students being evacuated from that Armenia route from Iranian universities. Remember, many of the medical students who are studying in Iran, in Iranian medical universities, also belong to the state of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. And that's why the conversation that my colleague Ishan was having with one of the parents there, they are worried for the safe arrival of their kids, of their wards, and now we are putting out these latest visuals of the Indian students who are being taken out of Iran through the Armenia route. My colleague Siddhant is with us on the broadcast. Siddhant, here we have already spoken about how the Indian Ministry of External Affairs has in fact made arrangements so that about 1,500 of these students can be evacuated safely through this particular Armenia route. But what is the exact number of Indian students who are studying in Iran?
Well, Greha, we don't have the exact numbers, but the figure that is available in public domain, then it is somewhere between 1,500 to 2,000 Indian students studying in various universities across Iran. And in fact, most of them were taken to safer places by the Indian embassy day before yesterday. In fact, yesterday also some were taken to the safer places to Guam and other parts out of Tehran. And now we're getting to know, in fact, the ministry has confirmed the footages and videos are also available that one batch of Indian students have successfully managed to reach Armenia via road route. And in fact, these are 100 students in the first batch, 110 students. Ministry of External Affairs has confirmed this officially. There is a control room which has been set up at Ministry of External Affairs' headquarters. 4 helpline numbers have also been issued. Ministry has asked the Indians, those who have their businesses in Tehran, those who have the transport facility to move out of the city and go to the safer places. So this is an advisory which has come because right now the priority for the government of India is to evacuate the students and pilgrims first. And that is exactly being executed. A first batch has already reached. We could expect more students to reach Armenia in days to come. In fact, the other routes are also being explored, especially shipping route to UAE. In fact, Foreign Minister Jaishankar yesterday spoke to Emirati counterparts.
Namaste, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan. The Israeli military has said that if it killed Iran's top military commander Ali Shamdani in an overnight strike, calling him the closest figure to the supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The Israeli Air Force struck a staffed command center in the heart of Tehran and eliminated Ali Shamdani, the wartime chief of staff, the most senior military commander and the closest figure to the Iranian supreme leader Ali Khamenei. The Israeli military has further said that Shamdani had commanded both the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and also the Iranian armed forces. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that he believes his country's strikes have significantly set back Iran's nuclear program. Israel has targeted 3 key Iranian nuclear facilities with the extent of damage unclear. Israel targeted 3 key Iranian nuclear facilities, Natanz, Isfahan and Fordo, and a number of top scientists involved in nuclear research and development. The extent of this damage is beginning to come into view, with satellite imagery and expert analysis hinting that the strikes had a significant impact in at least 2 of the locations. An Israeli military official has said that strikes on Iran's nuclear sites in Natanz, Isfahan were able to damage the sites significantly, while Iran claimed that damage to the facilities was limited. Iran project director at the International Crisis Group has further said that the whole nuclear supply chain has been disrupted as Israel and Iran continue to exchange fire. He stressed the significance of each targeted nuclear site, which are all involved in the complex sequence of steps required to create a nuclear weapon. Now, US President Donald Trump has said that he's looking for a real end to the conflict, not just a truce. After leaving the G7 summit early, Trump denied that he left to work on a ceasefire and said something much bigger is in the works. He also warned Iranians to evacuate Tehran. US President Donald Trump further said he wanted a real end to the nuclear problem with Iran giving up entirely on nuclear weapons. You cannot become nuclear. That's what his post on Truth Social very clearly highlighted in all capitals. Iran cannot become nuclear is what he said. His comments he made were to reporters on board Air Force One on his way back from the Group of 7 summit in Canada. He further said that Iran, like I said, cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. The only deal is that Iran does not go nuclear. Otherwise, it is going to be a wiping out of all of Iranian nuclear program and further escalation. Ambassador Deepak Vora, Lieutenant General Pandey, they should be joining us. DP Pandey should be joining us. But first, let's go across to Igal Malka, human rights activist in Israel. Igal, namaste. Thank you for your time. How do Israelis view this? What's your point of view on what is currently happening between Israel and Iran?
Okay, we first have to understand that since Iran launched a direct missile attack on Israel, at least 24 civilians were killed. Men, women, children, struck by rockets, fired from over 2,000 kilometers away. More than 200 where others have been injured. This is not a conflict. It's a state-sponsored terrorism, a terrorist regime targeting another country. Let's be clear, this is not normal. We cannot allow this. This is the situation here in Israel. I can say that as painful as it is, those attacks have only brought the Israeli people together. They are remind us why we are here, and in the most basic sense, we are not afraid. We are stronger now. So I can say thank you, Iran, for that.
But let me ask you this. Why did Israel have to take this preemptive strike? What is the whole point of view with Iran cannot become nuclear? Israel can be a nuclear power, but Iran cannot be nuclear. What's the logic here, Igal?
Okay, it's a good question that everybody asks. But the issue is that Israel is not threatening anyone. Israel is using a nuclear weapon to defend itself. It's only in case that it will attack. Now,
so no first
Iran
use.
is attacking. Yeah, Israel is now attacked by Iran, and it's not using its nuclear weapon. On the other hand, the Iranians are threatening us from the very beginning. Before they have the nuclear weapon, they are saying that they are developing the nuclear weapon to destroy Israel. This is the difference. It's the same as you armed a soldier that is going to protect you, or you armed a terrorist. This is the difference. We are not allowing, no one should allow a terrorist to be armed with a nuclear weapon. It's a threat not only for Israel, it's a threat for the whole free world. Israel is on the first line for the whole free world in this war, and it's not only our war. It's not a local war. It's an issue for the US, for the European, for any free country.
Igal, let me also ask you one more question. We have Ambassador Deepak Vora and Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey also joining us. My namaste and Jai Hind to our other two guests. Thank you very much. But I was speaking to Professor Brahmachalani yesterday, Igal, and he had an interesting point of view. He said, I may support Israel, but is Israel wading in too far? A wounded Iran is far more dangerous. Iran is a signatory to the NPT, but yet still continues with its nuclear program. With whatever decimation is happening, destruction is happening, is Iran not going to be further more firmly resolved to eventually turn nuclear and destroy Israel? How is it going to help Israel in the long term with what's going on?
Okay, I can tell you that if we are afraid of it will become more dangerous, then we should think about Iran with nuclear weapon. As long as they have those plans, as long as they have this regime that planning to develop a nuclear weapon, then it's dangerous, not only for us, but for the whole world. So the issue here is to change the regime in Iran. The Ayatollahs that came in 1979, made change in to the Iranian people. We are looking around and we see the people of Iran that cheers Israel. They want us to change the regime in Iran. It should not end with any agreement. If you think that we can do an agreement, that Iran will develop a weapon with limited options, then it's not going to be something like that. We have to throw them away, nothing else.
But Ambassador Deepak Vora, let's take the conversation forward. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israel Prime Minister, also said that Ayatollah Khamenei has to go. There has to be a change in the regime. Now, that's the only solution for this war to stop. Do you agree, disagree? Because they've been there for such a long time that 4 generations have come under them. Whatever Iran's abilities have been or inabilities are under the Ayatollah's regime. Is Iran ready for a regime change, and will the regime change bring about peace?
Thank you very much, sir. Always a pleasure to...
Igal, I'm just going to the other panelists and then I'll bring you back in. Yeah. Yes, Ambassador Saab, go ahead.
The other person who was speaking, and I see the Star of David behind him, it's the star I wear on my chest. Obviously Israeli.
Yes.
Our colleague, I
yes.
didn't see the name.
Yes,
And
Igal Malka is an Israeli human rights activist.
And joining us from Israel?
Yes.
All right. Well, sir, my name is Deepak Vora. I'm an ambassador of India, and I begin by saying, Pizza Hanle Israel, sir. Our hearts are with you. I know what is happening. I have been in your country. I have passed through that area. Sir, we were talking about the regime change operations and so on. Let me just put it this way. When I used to pass through that area in the 70s, I've been 52 years in diplomacy and counting. And I remember that there were direct flights between Tehran and Tel Aviv. And this very handsome young Iranians, like our program host this evening, who's brilliant, they would be flying to Tel Aviv, to your nightclubs, to drink, to get sozzled, and to make friends with all the people. Completely liberal society. You have always been one, Iran was. And then suddenly come the mullahs. And one of the things that astonished me, sir, when the revolution came, the so-called Islamic revolution in 1979, the first thing that Ayatollah Khomeini said, well, now that we have a revolution in Iran, we are going to have one throughout the Middle East. All these monarchies will go. Saudi Arabia will go, Bahrain will go, UAE. I say, what is your problem with those guys? Who are you, appointed by Allah to do what? To bring democracy or to bring theocracy to this region? That was the first mistake, I believe, that they made. Now, the way Israel has defended itself, it has every right, as G7 said, to defend itself, and so do we when we are attacked. The way Israel has defended itself, it has crippled Iran. Whether it has destroyed its nuclear facilities or not, it has damaged them very severely. Sir, with President Donald Trump rushing back to the White House from the G7 meeting and saying something big is going to happen. Now, I'm going to read out to you a message I got, and my colleague from Israel may or may not be willing to confirm this. This has come from a former Iranian military officer. I have my own group, WhatsApp group, etc., senior people. This has come from a former senior Iranian general who's now either in Europe or whatever he is, whatever his name. He says, I'm reading this very slowly, sir. It's come to me in Farsi. I'm translating it into English. Ali Khamenei is in Moscow. He has escaped to Moscow, the supreme leader. I don't know if this is true, but this is the claim that has been made. I have not been able to verify. If that is there, then it fits in totally with what Donald Trump said. I'm asking everybody in Tehran to get the hell out of there before fire and fury rains down on you. So my feeling, Iran is not in a position to take a beating anymore. They have suffered more than enough. The people of Iran have just about had it. What have the mullahs given them? 80% inflation, 50% unemployment, total global isolation. They are reviled internationally, sir. You talk of terrorism, automatically the name Iran comes up, sir. These are issues that are very real. We can deny them. We can scream till we are blue in the face. You are just showing this image of this poor lady wearing a child, doing a live telecast. By the way, I hope you have a shelter where you can hide. If something like this happens
I'm very confident about our own defense system, sir, the Sudarshan Chakra and the Akash Tir. So I'm not worried about that right now. But that Iranian anchor, Ambassador Saab, did come back, and I must, as a journalist, salute her courage that she did come back, and she went back to came back on air and continued to do the program, albeit from another studio. But that's their side of the story. But you're saying the larger picture is.
She was saying that we are determined to destroy Israel. Iran is winning the war, etc. You don't say these things in 2025. You don't say that a country doesn't have the right to exist. I'm sorry, sir. Whatever you might say about Iran, I love them very much, but you can't say this. You can't deny.
Correct.
What is their fault? I'm a crypto Yehudi, sir. I'm a crypto Jew. I mean, there's no question about it. My heart is with them. So you can't say that. So finally, let me put it to you like this. This is the end game, sir. Next 48 hours, I believe Israeli troops will enter Iran to seize the canisters, the stockpiles of enriched uranium, which are spread all over the country. You can destroy the enrichment facilities, but what has already been enriched is hiding somewhere. Take that out, bring it, take it wherever you want, explode it, sir. Whether Iran is building a bomb or not, happy birthday, sir. The jury is still out on that.
Correct, but Iran is also signatory to the NPT. So So why is it that its nuclear program is being seen with a certain level of suspicion, General Pandey? Is it because it's in Iran's doctrine to wipe out Jews and Israel, whereas it's not in Israel's doctrine to wipe out any nation or its people? Is that perhaps the reason? And if there are, these reports have been doing the rounds for a while, although the Israelis believe that Ayatollah Khamenei is still in Tehran. But if he's fled, and if all the action is in Tehran, the instruction by the Indian embassy in Iran is also that all Indians should vacate Tehran, get out of Tehran and get to anywhere closer to neighboring country borders, to Armenia if you can. That's what they have said. And there are massive traffic jams on the exit routes out of Tehran. That's been happening over the last 24 to 36 hours. But General Pandey, is it purely because of this doctrinal position that the Iranians have taken under the Ayatollah regime? And that's what the Hamas also had its own doctrine.
So,
is that purely the reason?
Correct. So, Anand, I think Deepak sir and me have been missing you for a long time. But let me just start by what has compelled Israel to go in. Israel has gone in for only one simple reason, because there is a position which Iran had taken up that the development of the nuclear bomb or the capability is primarily to make their mission complete, either threaten or at least if required use it in some manner or other to get compliance from Israel, right? So if that be the case and they realize that they are somewhere, it is a very declared capacity that in about next 9 to 10 months there was a possibility of Iran developing at least capability to build 9 to 10 nuclear bombs. One is good enough, right? But 9 is, of course, ensuring it 9 times. Israel has got hardly is a speck on the world map, actually, if you look at it. So this compulsion, Israel had no choice but to go in for a preemptive strike. We were waiting for it to happen for a long time, and well, Friday 13th happened to be it. The second part, which is more challenging, is that Iranians are not silly. They would have surely dispersed the capability which they did. I think in spite of all the surprise, the intelligence, the strategic targeting which the Israelis have done, they have been able to take out critical elements in terms of military leadership, certain headquarters, and certain nuclear assets which they want to take it out. But like Fodar, and possibly one more, where the entire activity of construction of fissile material is happening very, very deep. The Israelis have the bomb, but they don't have the capability to deliver it, right? So they possibly thought that they would have neutralized it, and I think in last about 3 days, couple of things have happened, which has now leading to a certain situation which is likely to have a catastrophic a situation. What is it? The situation is that Iran has gone for an escalation in which possibly they don't have the capability to hit only military targets, and therefore they have started out to hit deliberate or no choice or by miscalculation, may not be good equipment, the Israelis are getting hit.
Yes, civilians are getting hit.
In the Israeli consciousness, if you hit the Israelis, a common citizen, then you are taking a chance. It's a strategic calculation which will go wrong for you. And I think what has happened yesterday, when these couple of critical civilian infrastructure and civilians have been hit in a massive scale, which is now being fought, and I'll come back to it later, by the Israelis and information warfare campaign, that has resulted in the staging forward of those couple of assets, the strategic assets from the US mainland to Europe. And that is a major signal what is going to happen in the next 24 hours. It may seek compliance of a ceasefire from Iran that behave, otherwise you're going to strike. And second is, they may go for, and that is a major strategic miscalculation I think Iranians are doing. As long as they keep on hitting Israelis' military targets, I think they'll be fine. But the moment you start hitting common citizens, you are pushing Benjamin Netanyahu to take some much more catastrophic action. And Of course, Americans have got no choice but to assist. They may not participate, but they will fully assist in this next step, which is going to take place in 24 hours to 48 hours. So that is one part. Second is, look at the challenge, 1500 kilometers, 1700 kilometers apart. Everybody has been talking of drone warfare, air superiority warfare. Israel may have 100 times better air warfare superiority, war fighting capability, but the changes are made on ground, right? Unless you have no ground force going in to intervene, and I don't think Israelis are looking for a war fighting at the ground troops, boots on the ground level. They were looking for a regime change which will happen, may not happen. Please understand what was highlighted again by you only. 4 generations. The hierarchy of the religious and the political leadership is very, very strong in Iran. They may run away, but the radicalization which has happened to at least 25 to 30% of population which is there is extremely strong. Unless they are able to get people from within to carry out a movement on the street which will change a regime. And if they got a card, Israelis and the Americans have got a card, I'm not very sure right now, but more it gets delayed, there will be a challenge for them. Today, the sentiment, as long as you are hitting military targets, it's okay in Iran. The people may still support who are very, very unhappy with the present regime. But they have to look, you can't extend the war, you can't extend the hitting out on the people. Because every civilian target which gets hit is going to be a change. And the last point I want to just wind up is, information warfare has become the norm, in which there are 2 things that are happening now. Both sides, very interesting, okay? Israelis are showing civilian casualties. People are going to ask them that, so what about Gaza, right? And you are actually infuriating your own population and the American population, the deep state population, to carry out a major strike, a catastrophic strike on Iran, right? So that is one part. The second is Iranian will possibly use it to their advantage to hit on to HR, because somewhere in the woke culture there is a thing of going against right wing. There's an issue, there's a challenge.
There is no
okay,
right
I'll just add one more point. Deepak ji is there. If you allow me, Anand.
30 seconds. And
look
then
at what is happening. Israel, Israel and Iran, both the geopolitical situation is that everybody wants them to fight, right? The more Iran dies, the people in the Gulf, the Sunni community, even the Shia community are going to actually be happy about it, because Iranians have actually pushed them into themselves into a corner for a variety of reasons. We will not go into the details.
Correct.
Israelis going down every fight, right? Yeah, it is going to be, they are going to be very, very happy. You look at Syria, STS, IS.
So because the Sunnis also don't have too much of love, there's no love lost for the Jews or the Yehudis there. So there is that. There is that.
Anybody thinks in the current geopolitical situation.
There is that. But also within the OIC, there is also been this turmoil, because there has been an axis. There has been a Turkey, Iran, Malaysia, Pakistan axis within the OIC too, in terms of supremacy against the entire Arab nations. So that's another dynamic. But Russia, China, they're quietly sitting and watching right now. Igal Malka, what do you see happening over the next 48 hours? I've just got 2 more minutes. So one comment from you and one comment from Ambassador Deepak Vora. Yeah.
I'll tell you what is the issue here. The issue is that the regime in Tehran is same as Hezbollah, same as ISIS, same as Hamas. So I don't see any other option than continue this operation till this regime is going lost. But I want to say something. The irony, we have to talk about this irony. While Iran is targeting civilians and fund mass murdering terror groups, the International Criminal Court in Hague issues a warrant against Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about war crimes. At the very same time, Iran chairs the UN Human Rights Council. This is not justice. This is a joke. We have to talk about it.
You make a very fair point there and a compelling point. Ambassador Vora, final comment, sir.
Trump or no Trump, Israel is reshaping the Middle East. Iran was the last enemy standing. It has to be removed. And I think if there is anything in the Middle East that I would like to see. Iran has no business being there. The Jews can fight with the Palestinians, the Arabs can scream, this was our land, you can say this is my land. What has Iran got to do with that? The Israelis haven't gobbled up any land. They haven't said that we are dedicated to the destruction of Shia Iran. No, sir. I don't accept this logic at all. I believe Israel is going to reshape the Middle East. Iran was the obstacle. That obstacle is going. And the sooner it goes, the better it is, inshallah.
Right. We'll take this conversation forward. It's not over here. Next 48 hours, we'll be engaging again. Look forward to that. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Namaste. Thank you. Quickly getting a move on here now. Let's try and understand what has happened with the AI 171. There have been multiple flight disruptions that have happened so far. Let's try and understand about 10 flight disruptions that have taken place. The first one was the entire Delhi-Paris flight that was cancelled because of a technical snag. The other disruption that happened soon after, if you move to the second one there on your screens, flight from Paris to Delhi was cancelled on the 18th of June. The reason again was a technical snag. Thereafter, the next cancellation was the Ahemdabad London flight that was cancelled, and the reason was unavailability of the aircraft. Now then the London Amritsar flight was cancelled, and the reason was operational issue. Then the Air India San Francisco Kolkata Mumbai, that was deplaned, and again they said there is a technical issue. The Air India Hong Kong and the Delhi flight, that also returned. Reason again was a technical snag. The Air India Mumbai Ahmedabad was cancelled June 16th, and the reason was operational issue. Air India Express Delhi Ranchi also returned shortly after takeoff June 16th. Reason technical issue. London to Bengaluru flight was cancelled amid probe into the Dreamliner 787. Indigo Airlines also had through the day some issues. Are pilots being overtly conscious, or is it just the immediate anxiety post what happened AI 171? Let's go across to someone who's joining us. We've been trying to get in touch with him over the last 2 or 3 days, but he's been in a place where it's been difficult to reach, but very clear. Always a pleasure to speak with him. Former Civil Aviation Minister, articulate leader and spokesperson, and now also a captain. Rajiv Pratap Rudi ji is with us. Rajiv Rudi ji, namaste. Thank you. Hi. Thank you. This is Anand here. Thank you. Let me first ask you, as a pilot, sir, you're still flying. All of these disruptions, delays, and suddenly it is happening. Is it pilots being overcautious, or is this anxiety?
I think, to my understanding, I think you have catalogued whatever is happening in the skies these days, and possible cancellations. And a couple of cancellations took place because of the airspace. Closure and disruption between what was happening between. So I really do not know how many of you have catalogued. Always fly there, and those are permissible limits given by the manufacturing company, given by the DGCA. So I have to get into the details of so many flights being spoken and fly. So I will not be emotionally that to understand. I would not be able to make an outright comment that and were they all Air India flights, were they all 777s, whether they were 787s, well, all these flights which you are talking about, whether they were 777s, 787s, or the MAX or the 737s, which usually is there in the fleet. Or because you have talked about one particular flight of Indigo as well, so which is a 320 or a 321, which I am sure of, but I will not be able to exactly say that. Have you talked about all Dreamliners which fly international have reported this, or it is also the 777s which also fly international? So unless until you are able to give me a brief on that, I will not be able to make a comment on that as of now.
I'm not getting into the specific make of the aircraft, but yes, the Bengaluru one was a Dreamliner. The AI 159, which was supposed to fly out of Ahmedabad, is the renamed AI-171, you would be able to explain to our viewers why a flight number is parked after a crash and there is a new label assigned. So that also did not take off. That was supposed to be a Dreamliner again, and they said that it was not a technical snag, but some check issues which were being routine checks were being done, and then they said because this airspace is closed, this the shortest airspace over Pakistan, Iran and over Turkey and then further into Europe, that airspace is closed, so the aircraft cannot do the turnaround and then come back, so you have to, and there is no replacement aircraft, so we have to cancel the flight. That's what they said. So can you explain this to us? The other thing, Captain Saab, if I may say that, address you thus, is ये technical snag क्या है? Can you explain that to us? What comes under the realm of a technical snag?
Which talking about the 787 Dreamliner. So if I'm not wrong, more than 800 aircrafts or maybe 700 aircrafts at this given point of time, which are 787 Dreamliners, are in air at this point of time. So if it was something very technically wrong with the very make of the aircraft, then I'm sure world over all these aircrafts